I'm John Britton.
And I'm Angela Jamieson, and together we've created the School of Humankind.
We'd like to welcome you to Humanity, where Angela, I, and sometimes other guests get ourselves a cup of tea and talk about the things that matter, how to be human in a really complicated world. Well, welcome to this episode of Humanity. And let's start with the really important things. What tea are you drinking today, Angela?
Well, John, today I'm drinking something called Morning's Oolong. And it's got a low caffeine oolong tea, which is unlike me. I do not choose it for low caffeine because I love caffeine. In terms of it doesn't bother me. Marigold petals, lemon peel, basil leaf, and all natural flavor.
That's pretty impressive. So is
Thank
a
you.
tea in there as well, or is it just marigold and basil and so on? Or is there also
So
a tea?
the first one was a low caffeine oolong tea.
That's it. Oolong is a type of tea, I think. Is that right?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay. I'm just checking. So it's not a
it's
herbal
totally
tea, but it's a herbally infused tea.
tea,
Tea
the
tea.
black tea. Oolong is probably my favorite tea at the moment.
Okay.
And what
Well,
are you drinking?
I'm off because I'm late in the day. Well, for you, it's early in the day. Uh, I'm off in a very calming place. I have a stick of Sri Lankan cinnamon dropped in a cup with boiling water poured over it. It's subtle and warm on a blustery, damp Irish day, and particularly good for my blood sugar.
Love
Cinnamon
it.
tea. It's very lovely.
And cinnamon's also supposed to be good for metabolism.
Yeah, it's one of those super things, particularly if you mix it with ginger and things like that, and turmeric and whatever. Often when I go for a day in my studio, my art studio, I take a big thermos flask which has just got a turmeric cut up, some ginger root cut up, and a cinnamon stick, and that keeps me going through the day. It's fantastic and it tastes so healthy.
And
Anyway,
warm.
and
Yes.
so warm. Uh, anyway, enough of the teas. What are we talking about, Angela?
Well, we are going to talk about two essential qualities of being human. Well, each of us can bring two. You bring two, I'll bring two.
Cool. We're
Does
going
that sound
straight into the big stuff, which is what the hell does it mean to be human? Because we talked about the tea. Now it's time to about the humani part of humanity.
mm,
Okay, two qualities each that we think are essential to really celebrating, deepening, and realizing our humanity. How super cool. Are you going to
yes.
go first? Are you going to bring in the first quality?
Sure. If I can give a little background first to some thoughts, is so my son went on a job interview a few weeks ago, and one of the questions was, would you rather a world of all-knowing monkeys or a world of all-knowing computers? And my son immediately said, all-knowing monkeys. And they said, why? And he goes, because you need that emotion. You need the close to human as you can get, because that's kind of the missing edge in the world. And they thought that was the perfect answer, which I was really proud of him for realizing that. But that example just showed me how our softness, our thoughts, our emotions, that's really what we're adding to the world. And even if we don't think it's perfect, that's the beauty of it, is that we aren't perfect and that it's kind of fun to live in the frayed edges and just to celebrate them as well. So
So, so how would you name that quality? What word would you give to that quality?
the frayed edges quality, oh,
Yeah.
humaning. I don't
It makes me think of the word imperfection, which people think means is a bad thing, but everything you say and everything I believe is that imperfection is an amazing thing. It's our imperfection that enables us to grow and learn and deepen and connect with each other and so on. So but I'm not naming your quality. You get to name your quality.
Well, I don't know. It's one of those things that you get the feeling of it, and I don't know if there's really a word, but um, that was another thought I had about acceptance, and that what the people that are in my world and that we mastermind and stuff, is the whole feeling of we're aiming for this efficiency and productivity and all this stuff. But some of it is just accepting the way things are,
Mm.
accepting ourselves. So maybe the encompassing umbrella of it is acceptance.
I think there's something very beautiful in that. I like, although it's not quite the word, but the word, the frayed edgedness of it all. That one of the, I think the ways we are increasingly driven is towards trying to model ourselves on things created by machines. Try to be the perfect person, no frayed edges, turn up in the world burnished, shiny bright, and
Yeah.
really brilliant. And, if you see a flaw, engineer it out of yourself and so on. And this doesn't feel very human to me because it's not who we are.
No, that's right.
And we're told that the frayed edgedness makes us imperfect. And I don't think that's true. I look at, my cat has got a hazy, one eye is hazy, and doesn't seem to be tremendously coordinated for a cat. He's imperfect. I love him for his imperfection. I love the
Yeah.
trees in my garden which are bent and twisted in the wind just as much as I love the ones that are sheltered and which are tall and strong. It is the very imperfection of us, but only, and I think your word is right, only if we meet imperfection with acceptance.
And celebration.
Yeah, acceptance sounds a bit too much like tolerance, doesn't it? All right, I'll put up with your imperfections. No, it's celebration.
Yeah.
What a
So yeah.
gloriously frayed edge you have.
Yes. Every time you make a mistake, oh, that was a lovely frayed edge.
Oh, look, I've gone all imperfect all of a sudden.
And isn't that beautiful? But
Yeah.
you think about the most beautiful wedding in the world or anything you want to celebrate, the thing you remember are the things that go wrong
Mm.
because those are the things that really make it memorable.
And I think that's absolutely right. And we remember how other humans deal with things going wrong. It's
Yeah.
been clear, performers, as you know, my background is training performers and being a performer. Performers go, well, what happens if I get it wrong? I go, if you get it wrong, you have created the possibility for a moment that your audience will never, ever forget if you have the strength and the discipline to be entirely flexible and adaptable. I've seen
Mm.
shows where, you know, one of the earliest shows I ever saw, an opera, which, my mum took me to when I was about 10, the set fell down. There was a very large tenor climbing a ladder, it's Mozart opera, climbing a ladder to a balcony. And, he was singing about how he's going to rescue this woman from the harem and so on. And somebody hadn't weighted the sets. And the set rolled forward.
Oh,
And this was big, this was a 10, 15 meter high flat. And the ladder crashed to the floor. And the tenor, I remember him as he dropped to the floor, he kind of let go of the ladder and he bent his knees and he bounced and he came up singing.
Oh my gosh.
And then, of course, they had to shut the curtain because it wasn't safe and so on. But in that moment, it was so imperfect. And it's 50 odd years since then. And I remember it. I remember the experience in my body of going, God, humans are amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Perfect example. So, okay, back to your original question. What the qualities that I think, what did you say, are perfectly human?
Hmm.
The first one I would say is curiosity.
Hmm.
That's one that I think we need to foster. And it just opens up so many new worlds. It opens up awareness. It opens up love for others. Um, and my second one was imagination. So to be imaginative, because I think that's really where we push the leading edge of creation of what's possible by humans is to imagine what we want in life, what could be, what could I create. So without imagination, we don't move forward.
I
So
love
those are
how
my
I love how both of those fit into this sort of humanness that you were talking about, based around frayed edgedness and whatever.
yeah
That when we move away from the myth, the delusion that we or anything can ever be perfect. And in fact, I like to turn that on its head and go, it's not that everything is perfect, as in everything is exactly as it is, and therefore it's perfect. My slightly cloudy-eyed, one-eyed cat is exactly who he is, and he's just not like other cats. But then
yeah
again, no cat is like any other cat. No tree is like any other tree. No human is like any other human. We're all perfect in our own different way. So when we move away from this manufactured industrial idea of, or mechanical idea of perfection, it opens up the possibility, instead of going, I should be like this, it opens up both of the qualities that you're talking about. Curiosity, which is, okay, this is interesting. This didn't work as well as I wanted, or I was aiming for this and I ended up with that. And what am I going to do about that? How does that work? Or this person, I expected this from them, but they gave me that. Okay, fine. Let's explore what that is. And imagination is the bit where you go, okay, if this is how things are, I wonder how else they could be. If this is how I am, what do I need to do to be else, to be other? How can I imagine into existence the bridge from where I am to where I aspire to be, or where we are as a society to where we aspire to be as a society? It's not going to happen by machines, it's going to happen by imagination. And even AI, which I know everyone gets tremendously excited about, is simply vomiting back at us the ideas of the past. It
yeah
is not a place for imagination.
that's what I was going to say. In in the world where we really were fascinated by AI because what it spits out at us in terms of what it knows because of what it's been fed, that's still the edge, is being perfectly human, is finding that next idea that the machine doesn't know.
Mhm.
There's so much it doesn't know. It's a great research tool, but in terms of imagination, it's not going to get you that edge that only you can really create. So I think that's the exciting part of being human.
I suspect we're going to have a conversation in a future episode about AI, probably several. Uh, I agree very strongly with what you're saying there. I think one of the problems with the way we are sold AI is it says it contains knowledge and so on. It doesn't. It contains information which is only a very small part of human knowledge. It does not contain or communicate embodied knowledge. It does not communicate experience. It does not communicate the intangibles of being human, like love. It can describe them in words, but love isn't something that is words. Or wonder, curiosity, they're not words.
Mhm.
They're lived experiences. And if you say, well, AI contains all knowledge, you go, no, no, AI contains a large amount of a very small type of knowledge.
Yep.
And if we say that's what knowledge is, we are diminishing what it is to be human. And I completely go with what you're saying. A significant part of being human is our ability to be genuinely curious and genuinely to bring into reality through our imaginations things that are simply never been thought of before, or imagined before, or experienced before.
Yes. So, what are yours?
So then, yeah, the two words that I came in with, uh, they clearly connect with yours in quite interesting ways. The first of my words was wonder, the human capacity to wonder, which is clearly connected to curiosity. In fact, there is a meaning of wonder. I wonder what that means, which is basically the same as curiosity. I don't quite mean that. By wonder, I mean the experience of standing in front of, it's not so much what we don't understand as standing in front of things that we know are beyond our capacity to understand. That we are small in relationship to the vastness of what's around us. And in fact, our minds are small in relationship to the vastness of who we are. If I begin to take on board the complexity of this body I've been wandering around in for the last 60 odd years, and all the symbiotic relationships between other bacteria and life forms that make up my body, I can't even begin to conceive of that. And back to what we were just saying about AI, that knowledge doesn't do it. You can explain to me what the stars are like and why they twinkle and where they are. That has very little bearing on what happens when of an evening here, because I live in the middle of nowhere, and I walk out into a dark winter's evening, and the Milky Way is overhead, and there's 100 million stars, and then just a splatter of the Milky Way, and occasionally a comet coming down. I could probably tell you what each of the things I'm seeing is. So what? None of that
Yeah.
has anything to do with the experience of going, I am in a state of awe, a state of wonder
Yeah.
at the glorious complexity of which I am a tiny, tiny, tiny part. And I love that. For me, that is profoundly human because it reminds us that we are part of everything, but we are only part of everything.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And in terms of, and what wonder says to me is always kind of leaning on the positive, and incredible and uh, that liminal space we talk about in terms of what is what is possible, but we haven't quite yet discovered.
Mm.
And in my engineering background, we talk a lot about science. And, there's a lot of talk about, well, this is scientifically proven that blah, blah, blah. And then people take that as fact
Mm.
when actually science is constantly evolving. We are constantly trying to figure out, you know, what don't we really understand? Because there's so much that we are finding that is really knocking out what we think is fact.
Mm.
And if you look at some of the very easy examples of the past is like the flat earth. We thought the earth was flat. Everything that we saw, everything that we could observe pointed to this. But when we got more information, we saw that, oh, we are actually not flat. We are,
Mm.
a globe. And the same thing about, the sun revolving around us. Oh, actually, we're revolving around the sun. So all of these things in that moment in time, you think this is scientifically proven. Yes, it is, but we are continually learning more. And I think that really encompasses for me the whole concept of wonder
Mm.
is we might think we know, but do we really? And how fascinating it is to push that envelope, that continually pushing that envelope. So, yeah.
There's also a thing there that in some ways the opposite of wonder is the arrogance of thinking that you know.
Mm,
And not only science, also religion and also, sociology and political ideology. But it's particularly apparent in science where that arrogance exists, it often very quickly becomes inhuman. And I think of, the founding father of Western rationalism, which René Descartes, who would nail a dog to a wooden board and operate on it live. And when people were, appalled by the screaming, howling pain of the dog, he would say, no, 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 dogs are unable to feel pain. That's a purely mechanical reaction.
ugh,
That's inhuman. You
yes.
must close down your humanity to be willing to do that to a sentient creature
Mm,
and claim that it isn't happening. But by the same token, it's not only science that does that. Religion has plenty of examples, many of them
yeah.
still in the world today, of claiming superior knowledge and using that as an excuse to move away from essential humanity. And essential humanity, I think, is based in wonder. And it's
Yes.
also based in my other word, which is two words, kindness or compassion.
Mm,
Compassion's one of
yeah.
those words that's used a lot, and lots of people use it in memes. And I'm a very compassionate person, and so on. And I'm sure their intentions are very good, but
They got
compassion.
mocked.
Am I mocking anybody? Yes, I'm showing a remarkable lack of compassion for them. Thing is, kindness and compassion are really tough. They're really tough things. Compassion is seeing that which we find unbearable in someone else or in ourselves and immediately not only forgiving it, but recognizing we are only ever partially right when we judge it.
Mm,
Whenever we judge someone else, we are only ever partially right. And it's very hard because, there's things going on in the world right now where I am furious at them. And I would struggle to feel any kindness towards the people who are doing those things. Any kindness. I feel hatred, anger, violence towards them. But I think at our finest as humans, we go, I embrace all suffering, including my own, from a position of I will be kind. Doesn't mean inactive. It doesn't mean passive. It doesn't mean going, anyone can do what they want. It means standing up for what you believe and, if necessary, fighting for the world you believe in, but doing so from the understanding that our core, our essence as humans is that we connect and we
mhm.
are all connected. And that every time we hate someone or something, we are breaking the essence of our humanity, which is connectedness. I've only
That's very,
recently discovered Joanna Macy, the writer Joanna Macy, who died just not very long ago, last year, I think. Joanna Macy, a senior Buddhist scholar, American, but also very strongly a political activist. And she articulates very, very strongly for me that compassion and engagement, compassion and activism, compassion and fury can not only coexist, but actually can strengthen each other. So for me, the essential human quality is a willingness always to strive for kindness.
mm. And I think if we go back to what we created together, the School of Humankind,
Hmm.
that's really what we wanted to focus on. We
Yeah.
wanted to really say, in the world where everything seems to be going pear-shaped, there's always room for kindness. And that was our underlying principle.
Mm.
So I'm glad you brought that up. It's interesting, as you're talking, I was thinking compassion and kindness is kind of the way we deal with others' imperfection. Because as we were saying earlier, imperfection is beautiful in ourselves.
Mm.
Yet relating to someone else's imperfection is always maybe difficult because, as you said, it's so easy to be judgmental
Yeah.
when actually we have to meet that with kindness. Like, oh, they don't know. They don't know any better. Maybe, this is one thing you could say, but it's really hard when you're seeing, um, say, your example of the dog. How do you just say, oh, he doesn't know? He doesn't understand when there's cruelty going on.
Mm.
There's pain. And I think that's a direct relation to some of the things you're referring to in the world that is going on. And it's really difficult to not be angry, to not
Mm.
be there's an element of standing up for that dog, you know,
Absolutely.
and how do we make ourselves understand what's going on? Or because you talk about all these negative emotions that you feel, which are great indicators to you that there's something you're seeing that is not right with you. How do you process those in a way? Because if you keep feeling them, the person you're really hurting is yourself.
Yeah. See, I read a book a few years ago, which I can't remember the title of it now, uh, which a couple of friends in Greece gave me. Actually, the fellow who gave it me was a Canadian fellow. He lived in Greece. Uh,
The best people, right?
totally,
I
totally.
know.
What could be better? A Canadian fellow living in Greece, two of the greatest places in the world. Um, and it was a book about which said, why good people do bad things or something, which is a provocative title. But it was a very interesting book which explained that, it outlined 9 or 10 different moral frameworks and went, almost everybody, even though those we think of as being unforgivably evil, almost all of them are actually operating from a moral framework.
Mm,
But it might
mm,
just be not a moral framework that we share. The nationalists who are standing there waving their flag and screaming insults at other nations, I abhor what they bring to the world. But I am arrogant if I don't accept that they believe that asserting the right of their tribe against others is not a moral position. I don't
right,
agree, but it's a
right.
moral position. And so the question for activists or for political engagement or community building is, I will contest your morality. I will contest your ideas. I will acknowledge that I have my own moral framework that you might disagree with and dislike. I might have my own ideas that you might disagree with and dislike, but I will not contest your essential humanity. I will not dehumanize you, even if I think what you are doing in the world is utterly, utterly unforgivable. And that then brings us to the point where it's saying fight all you need to build the world for yourself and your family and your community that you believe is important, but don't do it by dehumanizing. And one of the key ways, just to come back to what you said about School of Humankind, one of the key ways of continually rejecting dehumanization is through our fundamental mechanism, which is conversation.
Yeah.
You talk with, you don't talk at, you talk with.
Yes. And there's a conversation I've been having in, my relaxed productivity community is when you're dealing with people you don't understand, is look for that common thread. Like you said, someone who's acting strongly, they're often acting from their strong moral framework. So theirs is different from yours.
Yeah.
They have a right to act out on it. And I think that's a beautiful concept to think of. We're raised in the Western world, and there's some cultures we don't quite understand, but there's something that they truly believe, that we aren't privy to, and we have to give them the ability to express that the way that they want to.
Yeah.
And one of the things we've been talking about is, when you come to people who have extremely different political beliefs, there's really no point of connection. So you need to find that point of connection in order to not feel those horrible feelings we feel, because their belief, let's just say political, is already the boulder running down the hill halfway down. You're never going to stop it. And to stop it, to try to stand in front of it, will only mow you down. So it's kind of let that ball roll. What can you connect? And there's always a point of connection. There's always, hey, we agree that we want a good world for our children. And I was joking the other day, we agree that chocolate chip cookies are a good thing. There's just those really basic, you can always find something that you can connect with someone on. So focus on that instead of trying to stop their rolling boulder.
I just want to say, you're talking to a diabetic. Talking chocolate chip cookies is just vicious.
Okay.
That's why I'm drinking my cinnamon root tea, because it's good for my blood sugar. So there we go.
We can connect on that kind of tea. That's
Absolutely.
for sure.
Hey, let's wrap this one up here, because we talked about curiosity, imagination, wonder, and compassion within the frayed edges of being human. That's a pretty good conversation for a Monday.
I think so. Well, thank you, John.
Thank you. Let's get together with a different tea very soon.
Sounds wonderful. Until next time.
Thank you very much for listening. If you'd like to know more about School of Humankind, please visit our website at www.schoolofhumankind.com, or you can drop us an email on hello@schoolofhumankind.com. Take care out there.